Congressman Stephen
has joined.
I couldn't go to that one. I was still in quarantine.
All right, we're going to call the Southern Nevada Enterprise Community Development Board meeting to order. Actually, we'll call roll.
Chair McCurdy?
Present.
Vice Chair Neal?
Here.
Member Goins-Brown?
Here.
Member Horsford?
here.
Member Creer? Excused. Member Monroe Moreno?
Here?
Member Steele?
Here.
Member Scott?
Here.
And Member McNeil?
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you, and we are in compliance with the Nevada Open Meeting Law. The agenda has been properly noticed.
Correct.
And we will now move to public comment. Is there anyone looking to testify in public comment on items that are on the agenda? Please state your name for the record, and comments will be limited to 3 minutes.
Yes, M. Christopher Brown II, interim president at Nevada Partners, speaking related to agenda item number 8, future items. Yes, at my last appearance before the Southern Nevada Enterprise Community Board, I shared that we would be moving forward with the CCSD grant as the lead agency for SNEC, and that we'd be hiring a new director of the West Las Vegas Promise neighborhood. We have completed that hire, Mr. Victor Ross, formerly of Senator Catherine Masto's office, and we request the opportunity to provide an update at either the January or February meeting.
Thank you. We note it. And welcome, Mr. Ross. We'll now, is there anyone else either on the phone or here in person wishing to testify for public comment? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to item 4, approval of the final minutes of our September 12th meeting. I entertain a motion.
I'd make a first.
All right, we have a motion by Senator Neal,
I'll second the motion.
second by Assemblywoman Danielle Moore Moreno. Is there any questions or comments on that? Hearing and seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? It sounds like the motion is adopted unanimously. Moving on to item 5, report by Karen Schnog.
Hello, thank you. Karen Schnog for the record. The total amount in the summary budget status report for the Southern Nevada Enterprise Community Project Fund is $6,818.
Thank you. Are there any comments, questions? All right. Move on to item 6, presentation by Leah Hendricks, Vice President, and Darian Harris, Associate Advantage Capital, on the state and federal new market tax credits providing capital to our businesses in distressed neighborhoods in Southern Nevada. Welcome. Please state your name for the record, and thank you for joining us today.
I'm Leah Hendricks, for the record.
Hi, I'm Darian Harris, for the record. Council members, thank you all for having us here today. My name is Darian Harris. I'm an associate with Advantage Capital. Alongside of me is Vice President Leah Hendricks. Today we're here to talk to you about flexible growth capital and Advantage Capital's participation in the Nevada New Markets Jobs Act. So a little background on Advantage Capital. We've been investing since 1992, and investments have totaled in over 800 plus investments. That is $3.6 billion invested into underserved communities and businesses, helping to create and retain over 66,000 jobs in over 20 different states across the country. In Nevada specifically, what we like to call our Silver State Growth and Recovery Capital Initiative, us alongside some of our affiliates, we've been investing in the state of Nevada for 9 years. We've invested over $155 million into the state, into 31 different portfolio companies representing all different types of businesses.
So currently with the Nevada New Market Program, and it mirrors the federal program, the qualification for the program is really driven by location, and that comes down to census tracts. So the image that you're seeing today is just a snapshot of Las Vegas. The eligible areas are identified in red and yellow tracts, red and yellow zones. And because this is a program that has its basis in the legislature, there are certain sin industries that are not allowed. There are limits in the Nevada program based on SBA size standard to really target and drive that capital to smaller businesses. How we use that program here in Nevada, we typically are making investments between $2 and $10 million. And there are some enhancements that Darian will talk about to the program in future to continue to bring down that cost curve to make it more and more accessible to smaller and smaller businesses. So that's a little bit about the qualification as where we stand now. And to speak to who we have served and who we currently serve with this program here in the state of Nevada, we primarily serve two audiences. One is businesses that are growing and recovering that are historically have worked with banks and other creditors, and we're providing a debt product to these companies, and for that we get an interest rate and a return of capital eventually. And so where we fit in the ecosystem of creditors is really in, as shown graphically, if you're able to see the slides, kind of in that middle, that no man's land there. You'll see that a traditional bank is going to really be at the intersection of low cost and low risk. And at the other end of the spectrum is where you might find businesses that are struggling and may ultimately not make it for a number of reasons. And so we're sort of in that middle, that senior adjacent, close to outside of what a commercial bank would do. So we're taking more risk, we're allowing companies to grow. And we can use that in a wide range of industries and a lot of different geographies across the state, and for many different uses. What we have seen in our portfolio and the companies that come to talk to us is that they're typically looking for something different that they can't get in a banking environment, and that tends to be patient repayment terms. So longer interest-only periods. So you bought a piece of equipment, now what are you going to do with it? How do you quickly get that revenue in to pay back that equipment? So we give them more time to do that. We let them pay off that equipment over a longer period, because often what happens is, say, equipment, for example, might have a very long useful life, but a bank might say you need to pay that back in 3 years. And that sometimes just makes it unduly burdensome for a company to grow. We also offer flexibility and guarantee in the collateral that is provided. In most cases, a bank environment is going to expect you to come with a significant asset. Well, sometimes you don't have one, but you might have a new contract, so how do you grow? So we can come up with some creative solutions for that. And then I would say we are realistic. We recognize that businesses need time to grow, and we're competitive on rate. So that's kind of how we serve that market with a debt product. And the other area we serve is your kind of founders, startups, and unicorns. And these are terms that you hear a lot and mean different things to different people. So I've showed some images on this slide that really try to articulate, as the way pictures can, who that is we're talking about. So if a business has an idea, or a person has an idea, that's generally a little early for us. This is the type of idea that needs some coaching, that needs a lot of help. And this is what you might hear pre-seed, seed. There's a lot of resources in the state of Nevada now with some of the SSBCI money that came in to help this type of business. It's really taking that idea into a business. And then once you've done that, and as you're thinking about making that transition, along the way, you have to know, is it working? And so you started going on a fishing expedition. So if you start to hear companies that are testing the market, they're trying to find product market fit, that's really kind of that middle zone. And generally, once they get that traction, once they get that fish on a hook, if you will, that's when they start thinking about, okay, now I really need a lot of capital. Now I'm going to go to market for a Series A raise, typically is the term that we hear most often. And that's really where we come into the picture. So you've done the work, you've figured out it works. And so those are ways for us to not only create kind of a proxy for valuation when we think about exchanging capital for equity in the business, but now we have a professionalized business that's really ready to grow, really ready to hire people. And so that's why we like to play in that later stage in the startup's life. With some list of requirements on the side. In the scheme of things, this is a very small list. So that means we can work with a lot of different businesses that are doing different things and might have heard, no from a lot of people in the Valley. For example, we invest in a lot of more industrial companies that are solving actual problems as opposed to the next Facebook. So with the capital that we have through the Nevada New Market Program, we utilize funds with that debt and equity pairing. We do have a return of capital, which allows us to constantly be making new investments in the state of Nevada. We just closed one 2 weeks ago. We just approved one this afternoon. So if I look stressed, that's why. But generally what we're looking for with this program is companies that will create and maintain quality jobs. At the end of the day, this is a jobs program, and our thesis has always been that if you give capital to growing businesses, they create jobs. So how we do that is just very similar to what I just described. Companies that don't meet traditional bank requirements, they often have a growth opportunity, but just doesn't work in a very restrictive banking environment. So that's a great company for us to work with. Those early stage companies that have gotten that fish on a hook, that are ready to scale nationally. And then finally, we see this a lot too. There are several impactful organizations, whether they have a training or healthcare component or whatever it is, that really can amplify whatever project they're working on with additional new market capital. And that's another place we play in the market. So here's just a little image of some of the companies we've worked with here in Nevada. Some on this committee may recognize Mario in the top left-hand corner. With their expansion into the building next door and the help of the city and the county, we helped them acquire the piece of real estate that will really allow them to make this big transition and provide more services to their local community. A couple more notable stories, certainly across the portfolio in the bottom corner is a great example. Maverick Helicopters of a recovery story. So not just growth. We were all here in 2020. We saw what happened. We saw that those planes were not flying. And so for a traditional banker, they would say, well, you don't have any revenue, but you still have to make your debt payments. How do you do that? Interest-only capital that says, take a minute, wait, it'll turn around, and it did. Finally, I just wanted to highlight one of the companies we started working with in 2014 that has been a great story. Tortillas, Inc., company in North Las Vegas, they came to us in 2014. They did pay us off in 2019. But they came to us and they realized that they didn't have enough capital to respond to their customers. The customers were saying, gosh, you make great chips. Can you make salsa? Well, you need equipment for that. And their bank said, no, thank you. You have too much debt for your earnings where they are today. Well, if you start selling salsa, you start earning more money to help pay back that debt. So we provided capital for the company to buy that kitchen equipment, and we incorporated that interest-only period, which was very important for them. Turns out it takes a few months to get your new commercial kitchen approved. So, this is a company we're very proud of. They increased their revenue by over 200%. They added over 40 employees because of the capital they had to finally grow and grow on their own terms. And the company has, gone on to survive the pandemic and continues to be active in the North Las Vegas market today. So I'll hand it over to Darian to answer any questions and kind of talk about ways we're thinking about the program in the future.
Yeah, so I just wanted to have a couple minutes just to kind of let y'all know where we plan on, taking the New Markets program. Through our experience and, having been participants in the program for 9 years now, we have noticed that a lot of the demographics and businesses that we think that should be helped by a program such as the Nevada New Markets Jobs Act aren't receiving the needed capital. And that's kind of evidenced by, earlier I showed y'all a slide, and there's been 31 businesses that have received investments through the program. Only about 3 to 5 of those would be considered minority-owned businesses. And for us, we really like to put our money where our mouth is, and that's part of our double bottom line of, making sure capital is going into communities that are underserved, while also, allowing us to, and our investors to make a return as well. We have decided to restructure the New Markets program into being, instead of originally a $200 million allocation, it'd be $170 million primarily towards the existing New Markets program. And then it'd be the remaining $30 million would go into what we would like to call an impact allocation. And now this impact allocation would be designated specifically for what we would like to call impact businesses. An impact business would be a majority minority-owned business, a woman-owned business, a veteran-owned business, a gay, lesbian, transgender minority majority-owned business, or a business engaged in advanced manufacturing. Now, this separate allocation would have a separate application process from the traditional New Markets application, but with less stringent requirements. This impact allocation would open up the program to any active CDE in the state of Nevada. You would not have to have an active federal allocation with the U.S. Treasury to be a part of the program like you have to with the traditional New Markets program. And we see this as really opening up the landscape to Nevada investors, so that they can work with us and we can work with them and kind of come up with a partnership together so that we can make sure that the capital is getting injected into the communities that need it the most. And that is, we are very firm in trying to make sure that we impact the state of Nevada as much as we can. And I'm welcome to take any questions from anybody if they have any.
Thank you, Chair McCurdy. I just have a quick comment, and then I'll open it up for everyone else to ask their questions first. Not being humble, but Ms. Karen over there, who worked for the state, helped in this bill in significant ways. And 2013, that was my legislation. 2019, that was my reauthorization legislation. And now you're just letting the chair of Ways and Means know that I'm coming back to the table with a third reauthorization? Exactly.
I didn't say any names.
Cat's out of the bag. We could discuss that later. But yes, recent occurrences. But yes. But yeah, this has been a really, really good program, and I think what you didn't mention are that the other CDEs that were actually eligible to apply for the 200 million tax credits, and how you are just one part. And so that might be helpful to share. If you don't know, I know probably Karen knows, peel off the rest of the other entities who did apply and who were allocated money. And so there are additional projects, not just yours, who were able to take benefit from the tax credits that the state of Nevada issued. So,
I can go from memory. So I believe in the first round, there were 8 applicants and who received funds, so they have their own respective 8 projects. We tend to do smaller transactions than our peer group, so we have more portfolio companies based on our investments than our peer group does. However, you have the standard national players on the new market scene, as well as some local CDs. I think those with employees in the state, probably Clearinghouse, CDFI. Prestamos, I believe, has an employee in the state as well. But otherwise, it's predominantly the national players, the ones in Louisiana.
Stonehenge Capital and Enhanced Capital out of New York.
okay, thank you for that.
Any other questions from the members? Mr. Scott?
Just for my edification, I know you talked about the cap, as far as investment opportunities you guys are looking for on the major scale from $2 million to $200 million. For this impact program that you guys are launching out for the $30 million set aside, what does that look like?
So for that program, since to your point, we recognize that the deal size for the traditional program is a little bit larger than it's a little bit larger than a lot of the demographics that we're trying to serve of what their scale is currently. So for that impact allocation, there would be a deal cap of $1 million on that. So we're looking at any deals less than $1 million, specifically looking at deals less than $150,000.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the members? Anyone online or on the phone have any questions? All right, thank you so much for joining us. Their information is on the sheet, so you can definitely follow up with other questions if you have them. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item number 7, discussion amongst the board around the next legislative session, and if there are any considerations that we have as a board that we would like to consider, directing staff to take a look at during the next legislative session. I'll just start off. But I think that we should strongly work with our partners at the state to see if we can get a direct allocation to the board, since it is essentially created by the state. And being that we are now in a place where there's a lot of movement happening within the area, I think it would be beneficial for us and advantageous of us to consider a direct allocation to the board. And of course, there can be accountability measures tied to it, or even it could be very prescriptive if we would like it to be. But I think it's something that we should consider talking to staff about moving forward.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Would that be a one-shot allocation or an ongoing allocation, and what would be the ideal amount you would hope that allocation to be?
I think we should always start high. So I mean, if we can, obviously we're going into the next fiscal year with the surplus from the state, not to say that, we can just spend.
There are no surpluses, sir. There's a lot of needs.
There are a lot of needs and a lot of hands that are going to be out. But I think it would be, in our benefit to, consider something in, the $10 to $20 million range for the board. And in fact, we can have those funds be leveraged by the municipalities within as well. And we can see if there could be some possible synergies around the different municipalities accessing these funds, being that we are the governing board and would have the oversight of how these funds will be allocated. I would feel comfortable saying something around $20 million. I will let the finance folks with the history of the budget and so forth speak to that, but if I'm not in the right ballpark, we can take a look at something else. But as we know, whatever's submitted to the legislature is not what's going to be allocated. So I think it's a strong negotiation start.
Mr. Chairman?
Congressman?
I would also just add that SNCC can receive and apply for grants, and we should put ourselves in a position to be able to serve in that capacity, to bring resources into the SNCC community, to our partner agencies that can be leveraged against the priorities that we've already identified. I like the direction you're going as far as figuring out a priority in each jurisdiction that we could all get behind and indicate support for, but also leverage not only from the legislature, but from any other pot of funding that exists. And we need the resources to do that. I know right now we have a structure where we have lead agency that's, overseeing and implementing a lot of the initiatives within the Promised Neighborhood, but SNCC can also serve as its own grant recipient and grant maker, and so I think we should leverage that as much as possible. So I would support the direction, however much money, is ultimately asked for. I would just say it should be broader than just the Nevada legislature.
Chair McCurdy, I offer a couple of comments. I think when you say, because we're a multi-jurisdiction board, I think clearly there would need to be some, amendments in terms of purposes derived so that statutorily you can constrain the municipalities and what they address or how they address the issues in alignment with the SNCC mission. I think that has to be super clear because a city may not be in a direct alignment with the mission of SNCC, and you don't want a city to put forth a project or a idea that does not fall within the mission or the purpose of what the group is seeking, because sometimes we are in opposite positions on what we want to take on, and sometimes we're in common positions. But it's really about making sure that the legislature, in its capacity to draft policies affecting municipalities, to set the parameters of the behavior that we expect if that appropriation was to be manifested. In addition, if there were grants that were going to be leveraged, right, if from seed money or applications done by the board, I'm always trying to be super careful about municipality behavior so that it falls in line with the community that we're seeking to serve in the census tracts.
Mr. Chair, I would just add to that. I haven't been on the SNCC board for years and years and years. This is my first year on the SNCC board. And the one thing that I've noticed is that we have an amazing staff that does a lot of work intermixed with their regular day job. And SNCC doesn't have dedicated staff just for SNCC. And that might be something else moving forward. That would just be a SNCC employee, because you have the various jurisdictions, but only staff from one of those jurisdictions that are carrying that heavy lift. So looking at having SNCC staff to help coordinate between the jurisdictions would be, I think, helpful.
So Karen, I think it might be beneficial for us to take a look at what a fully funded staffing model may look like, to include within whatever consideration that we agree should be sent over to the legislature during this next session. So I will formally request that that is included in as well.
Understood, Chair. Karen Schnock for the record.
Chairman, Deputy City Attorney Jeff Gallagher for the record. That's going to require a change to the statute as well, to the enabling statute. So just when you're giving direction, make sure that you're including, that this gets addressed also. We don't want that to come up separately and then be in opposite to the enabling statute.
Senator No?
Thank you for that, Chair. I do have an open chapter, couple, but we can work out the statutory change.
All right, thank you. Are there any other comments from online or on the phone? All right, do staff feel as though they have enough direction? Okay, it looks like we're all good. We'll now move on to item number 8, discussion around topics for future agenda items. I did hear that there was a request for an item from NPI at the next regularly scheduled meeting, so we will include that and work with Dr. Brown on that. Would anyone like to see anything else? We've limited the number of presentations that we were having unless they were pertinent to what we were doing. We really appreciate Leah and Darian coming today. That was very, very helpful and helps us to continue to turn our wheels on how we're going to put forward certain considerations. Anything you would like to see, Senator No?
Yes. When's our next meeting scheduled? Is it before we leave for session?
Sorry, Karen Schnog for the record, it's in January, end of January.
Okay. I want our BDAC, the Regional Business Advisory Group, that has, I want them to come and present on their procurement around, they were set up in 2005 to do procurement to minority businesses, and it involves the local jurisdictions and the political subdivisions. So that includes Southern Nevada Water Authority, Library District, and other cities. But there is a chair. I don't know if the chair has changed. I can get that contact for you, but I think they would be helpful in the process of where we're going in terms of trying to, I guess, produce information around what are the future procurement opportunities that they have in play with their federal allocations, along with their regular allocations, and what they're doing in their procurement process, because it also ties into future legislation as well. That's what I want to see.
All right, noted. Anyone else? Hearing and seeing no one, we'll move on to item number 9. And item number 8, Mr. Attorney, we don't have to take action. This is just direction. Okay. Yeah, we'll move on to the second part of public comment, citizens participation. We ask that you come state your first, last name for the record. If you live within the SNCC boundaries, please state that. And you will be allotted 3 minutes. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon. I'm Catherine Duncan. I would like to request an item be placed on the next agenda. I would like for you to respectfully listen to a presentation from Mr. Brad Carson. Mr. Brad Carson is the lead agency, similar to Nevada Partners in Los Angeles, when they just finished a Playa Vista development over there. His organization is called United Hood Nations, and Jobs Create Peace. And one of the things he did was have a bill in California that was centered around the Corrections Department. It was the Assembly Bill 678, which created the California Community Corrections Performance Incentive Act. And I'd like to see us mirror that type of act so that we can get a set aside for those people who are challenged with the correctional system. So Mr. Brad Carson, PV Jobs, United Hood Nations, I would like to have him give a presentation to you to show how they've already done what we're doing. They were just given a $18 million grant to do some of the work like Nevada Partners, and we'd like to mirror some of their activities. He gave a presentation to us 2 weeks ago at Nevada Partners, which was attended by the young ladies here with me today, and we believe that if we can follow a successful model, we don't have to recreate the wheel. So I'd like to let Mr. Brad Carson know what he has to do to make a presentation to this body.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to testify in the second portion of public comment, either on the phone or here in person? All right, hearing and seeing no one else, this meeting is adjourned.